painting this design. So I'm just going to show you the materials that you need, and then we will start painting. So this is the finished product, and I have, well, what is mostly the beginnings of the first layer. So we will paint the first layer, and I have a hair dryer with me this evening, so I'm going to use the hair dryer to dry in between layers. You need a set of our tools, and these are, there's 7 of them, and they're numbered. So the largest one is number 1, and you need some paints. So the paints that I'm using tonight are, I have 3 shades of peach, and I have a better camera here in a minute. I'm going to change the camera. So we have 3 shades of peach or orange. So there's an orange and then a peach and a lighter peach. There is a turquoise, 2 ocean breezes, 1 light and 1 a little darker. I have 1 that is white, and then I have a red and a blue, a dark blue. So the red and the dark blue don't come in until the very last layer. And then you need something to paint on. So I have been using cardstock. This is a finished piece that is 4 inches across approximately. So if you're painting with younger people, you probably will want to give yourself a little bit bigger space than that. Or if it's your first time, it would be good to give yourself a little bit of space. And a couple of things have improved since the last time. I'm hoping will work. One is the camera that I'm going to switch in a minute. So it's going to be a downward view of what I'm doing. And so you'll be able to see that and hear my voice. And then the other thing is I have my iPad, which is kind of freaky because you can see it here. I can see myself on the iPad. That is the way that I can see live chat. For some reason on my computer, on my laptop, it wasn't working or isn't working, but that's my way around it. So there is a 30-second delay as I've practiced what I'm saying to you. I actually said 30 seconds ago. So if you type something and you're saying slow down and I don't respond, it's because I might not have seen it. So I'll try my best to look over at my iPad, which is just over here, and notice if you have anything to comment. So I'm going to switch the camera to the downward view. Haha, I did it, yay. So, and look how bright that is. I'm so excited that that worked a lot better. So we're going to start out with tool number 2. And in my instructions, if you download this particular design, I use an off-white in the instructions. So in this one tonight, I'm just going to use a white. Either one's quite nice for this particular pattern. And so if you haven't done this before, we're going to start it. We're going to make what I call an 8-point mandala. So if I was to look at the orange here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, there are 8 of those. And there's 8 big blue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's every step of the design is done 8 times. And that is with the exception of the very middle. So I'm going to teach you how to start out. So we need tool number 2, and we're going to dip it into the paint. If I move everything, you can see everything, yay. And when I say dip it into the paint, you're really just going in just to get the very tip of the tool, either end of it covered in paint. And I just realized I need some paper towel with me. So I've got my tip of it covered in my white or off-white if you're using that. And I'm very gentle with my tool number 2 or tool number 1. I have to put the paint down gently. And if you're painting on paper, hold the paper down with your finger as you lift up the tool. Very important to do that. Otherwise, they're going to stick together and you're going to get a misshapen dot as you lift up your tool. So that's the first one. Now my colors here, as I mentioned, I'm going to learn how to tilt this so you can see it. I have 3 shades of orange to peach. So I'm going to be using the middle one. So I'm calling this peach. So the darkest one I'm calling orange, the middle one is peach, and the lightest one is light peach. So I'm going to work with the middle one, peach, and I'm going to create my first set of 8 dots. So I dipped my tool number 6. I'm using tool 6, and I'm going to go to the 12 o'clock spot. So I get my students to visualize that this first dot we made is a clock with all the numbers on it. So I'm putting my first dot where the 12 would be, and my goal is for it to almost touch my big white dot that I put down first. And then I go straight down to where the 6 o'clock spot would be. And it's like an imaginary line that I've put 2 dots on. Now I'm going to rotate my design so that these are at the spots for my vision at 9 and 3 o'clock. And then I'm going to repeat that process, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And as I do that, I'm actually dividing the space between these two in half. So there's my third dot. So remember, I'm going to be doing 8 dots. And my fourth dot. So these should end up being about the same size. They should be equal distance apart. And then what we're going to do is repeat the same 12 to 6 o'clock by just turning it one direction. And I'm going to be putting a dot here and here. Same color, reapplying my paint every time. And if you are watching and you get a minute, whenever you get a minute, if you want to be helpful, you could put in a comment just so I can test that I am indeed getting that on my iPad. That would be fantastic. So now I'm going to rotate my paper again and do the same thing. So there we go. I have my first set of 8. Now I'm going to use tool 5. And I'm just looking on my original design so I know where I'm putting my dots. So we always have to know what tool and what color and where to put them. So this next step of 8 is going to be tool 5. And it is out of my 2 beautiful Ocean Breeze colors, I'm going to use the lightest. So that's my tool, that's my color. And I'll show you where they go. And then I'll put the rest on. So these dots, when you make them, it's like an imaginary line that is going in between the peach colors that you put on first. So as you rotate, you'll get another set of lines. Oops, I just had a little boo-boo there. I'm not going to worry about that. I love it when things like this happen. I call that a teachable moment. As a teacher, that's a teachable moment. It's because a lot of my students, especially younger ones, get things like this happening and they get really worried about it. Just leave it, because as I build my design out, I'll probably paint over that. And if I don't, what I'll do, if there's any parts there later on, I can go ahead and put some black paint right over top of that. And I'll show you how to do that. So that's where my set of 8 dots are going to go. And I'm going to go ahead and make the rest of them, reapplying my paint every time. And I'm also working to try to make them so they're on imaginary lines so that they are straight, and also reapplying the paint so they're the same size. So there we go. There's our next set of 8 dots plus an extra white dot for good measure. I love it. Now we need tool 3, and we're going to move up in color. So we're basically, with this design, it builds out, when I created it, based on the premise of starting light and building outwards to dark. So the next tool is tool 3. The next color is the darker Ocean Breeze. And now you need to know where they go. So pay attention before you do anything as to where they go, because if you start putting them in a different place, or if I do, that's why I got to look at my original, we're going to be making a different design, which could be very beautiful. It just will be different. And then once you're doing something different, it's different for the rest of the process. So this is where they go. I call this like being on top, which is kind of confusing. I don't mean that the dot goes literally where the dot was before. It's going, if this was an imaginary line, it's building outwards on the line that we were just on. So this is the darker Ocean Breeze, and I'm going to continue to rotate my paper, and I'm taking my time, and I'm doing my best to line this up with the center. So even if something was a little crooked, it will start to come back into alignment. And you'll notice I'm not doing 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock right now. So as you get to this point, once you've done a set of 8 From that point on, you can find out what spot works best for you. And you could do 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock each time if you want. But what starts to happen is you're working over top of wet paint. See, look, I got rid of most of that white boo-boo. Oh, yay. That wasn't too bad after all. There we go. So now, next tool. Remember I said we're working from light to dark. So we're going to use tool 2. We're also going bigger each time as well. And we're going to use the turquoise color. So if you've mixed your paints or you're trying to get paints that work with what I've got set up, basically what you need is just another paint that is darker than the last one you used. So I didn't quite put these in order. This would be the lightest, then the second darkest to the darkest. And so you need tool 2, and you're putting it in line again. I'll show you where these go with my beautiful turquoise. It is going to go in line with what we just did. So it's like a little progression here of larger and also darker dots. So one of the reasons that I'm doing these live streamed broadcasts, which has been, at first, I'm feeling pretty comfortable about it tonight, actually. I was very glad it was a leap of faith to get into the technology. The technology felt quite overwhelming at first, which is weird for me because I really like technology, but I've never played around a lot with video technology. So I had to do a little bit of playing around yesterday to try different things and whatever. But my hope is that what will eventually happen is that we'll build a community of people that will come together. Oh, and I see someone said testing. Hello. I see someone that's said testing. Thanks. That's great. So I know I can see my messages now. So yes, I would love to connect people, because what I'm doing with Traveling Kindness Rocks and the different branches that have just developed and emerged, and even before that, when it was simply the Traveling Kindness Rocks themselves, is actually I'm hearing from lots of people from so many different places around the world. And it's all coming to me, but people aren't able to connect with each other. So the power that we have in the world now with the technology, to me, it's just has that potential for me to be that format for us to get together and connect. Because today alone, I had someone from Italy purchase these tools, and she's waiting for these to come to her so that she can join in. And I think it's just so amazing. So if you would like to, on the chat, just say where you're from, and it can be a general location like Canada, that would be really cool, because I know that there are people from around the world that have connected to me, so they may be watching, and it's neat to know. I'd love for you to be able to experience that too. So now we're going to switch gears here. We've built out this wonderful line of the turquoises, and we're going to use tool number 7, and we're going to work with whatever white we have. So I'm using the brighter white today, and I'm going to go in here and go back to where I first kind of started my dots. So this set of dots, they're tiny, and they are going to be in line with the peach. And I used this demonstration last time. So this tool, if you dunk it all the way in and you get lots, where's my camera? You get lots of paint on that, you can make that size dot. Now I'm going to wipe off the paint so you can see the difference. I'm going to put just the tiniest little bit on here. So I just dipped the very edge in. And you can see the difference. There's the demonstration I did the other night. So with this, if you take a look at what space you have, depending on how you've been making the dots, you can play around with it and make it work in there. So, and also the pressure. If you push down, you're going to get a bigger dot. And actually, I've got to the point where I can really control and get very, very, very small dots with this one tool. And that will come with time and practice. But depending on what space you have in here, you will need to control the amount of paint on your tool, as well as the amount of pressure potentially. So there, that's our next step. It's looking really cool. I'm loving this camera. It's great. A lot better than the last time. It was quite fuzzy if you were with us last time. Now we're going to switch to tool 6, and we are going to work with some of the peaches. So in the oranges, I want you to find your lightest color orange or your lightest peach. So this is my very lightest peach. And I'm going to get tool 6, and I'm going to go in line with that white that I just did. And then in here. So that's where they go. Right in line. When I paint, and it's the evening and I've put my kid to bed and I'm doing this for enjoyment, I usually have music on. So we may get to that point because I'm sitting here in my moments where I'm not chatting with you. And I'm like, where's my music? I'm very musically orientated. Now, at this step, and one thing I want you to do with the patterns I'm creating, if you're using them, is encourage you to, oh, when I bend over, the camera is blocking our view. Thank you. Okay, so I have to notice that. I will do my best to put the dot down and then get back up. So with this next step, you may need to choose between tool 2 and tool 3. So good idea to do at this point is to get your tools out without any paint on them. And then I'm going to try to do this without bending over. What you want to do is fill in that space right there. So depending on how big your dots and your spacing is, you may need to switch that down to tool 3. If you have very little room, switch it. And the other thing that you can do, you might think, well, if I'm going to use tool here, tool 2 here, but over here I don't have room, I'll just jam it on in there. You know what? Actually switch and put tool 3 there. You're going to be surprised that will actually be the best maneuver. So you may end up using some 2s and then 1 3 just over here, and nobody's going to know the difference. So what you want to do is make sure that you fill up the space, but you don't go over dots that are already there. And we're going to do this with the darkest orange. So I'm bending over, so I'm not going to bend over and block the camera. How am I doing now? I'm bending to the side, which is going to be tricky for my vision because I want to line it up and bend over. I did it. Could you see that? I think I did okay. If you can squeak it in to touch that last little dot you did, go for it. So I'm really having to control that right there. If I didn't have really good control over the pressure, I probably would need to switch to the tool 3. So you need to be on the lookout for that. There we go. So I'll just go around here. And now this space of mine is quite big. So I'm going to push down a little bit harder, fill it right in. That one's not as big. How am I doing now, folks that are watching? Am I doing better letting you see what I'm doing? Give me a message if you want. That would be awesome. Okay, next tool is tool 5, and we're going to use the light ocean breeze, the lightest ocean breeze. And we're going back to our line of the turquoises, and we're going to put 1 more dot in alignment with that. Let me see, I'm trying to watch myself. There, I think you're able to see that. I was also experimenting with, this is apparently some version of Google Hangouts on Air, but apparently the Google Hangouts may be able to do some of this technology as well, up to 100 people. But I believe with that technology, everybody has to be a Gmail owner. So I'm learning, I'm figuring it all out. Now, we're going to use this tool to do what I call a taper. So I've created my own little vocabulary with this process. So here's how you do a taper. You get some paint on your tool, and then you can do a bunch of dots in a row if you let the paint kind of run out on you. So over time, I've learned what works as far as how far these will go before they run out of steam. So for this, you will be fine. What you're going to do is use that light ocean breeze again, and you're going to start your taper in close to your top and your turquoise. You want it to be as close to both of those as you can without touching them. And then you're going to follow the line of the big turquoise dot just down to wherever you run into another dot. When you run into another dot, you're done. And then you reapply the paint and you do the same thing on the other side. So you've got to go around each side. So yes, if you were to get any of my booklets, or I can't remember if I've put them in some of the single ones, I think I have as well. I created my own vocabulary to go with this because as I teach it to people and help people learn to do it, I have to have some language to describe things. So this word, with this, I call this the taper. And the taper starts as far away from the center as possible. And then there's also another word that I use, or a term that I use, called the reverse taper, which we're not going to use in this design, but essentially it would be starting as close to the middle and going outward. So I call that the reverse taper. That's another word I came up with. Now I've got a lot of space in here, so I guess I'll just wrap that around in there. And people ask me if these need to be the same on each side, and they don't. What you really want is to get even spacing between these little dots. So you're aiming for things to be consistent. Now over time, what will happen is you'll also be consistent in the amount of dots on each side, which is great. So now our next step, we're almost done with our bottom layer. As you can see here, here's our bottom layer, except for a couple dots. I started to add those in a workshop. So we need tool 6, your white or off-white, whichever you're working with, and you are going to put a dot in line with your middle. So these are lining up on those imaginary lines. Everything always lines up. I shouldn't say everything. Some dots are kind of these foundational dots that line up. The ones like the tapers are more ornamental in that they're outlining, and so you're not worried about lining up with an outline dot or with the taper dot. But with this dot, you are working to line things up. Now the next step that we're going to do is the last step, and you get to decide, so it depends on your piece. When I've taught this in workshops, there's some people who their area in here where we want to work is too squishy. So I'll show you what we want, and then you're going to decide for your piece what's going to work. So you would take a little bit of your white, and again, I'm really got good control of my pressure, so I can get really tiny dots, and I make a little neighbor dot on each side. And I have the space, if I look at all of my 8 zones with the orange, to do that. So you may not, and that would be fine, and that would be what I've seen in workshops when I've done this design. So if you don't have the space in all of them, don't worry about it. Don't just go in there and squish them in there just because the original had it. You're not going to be putting that original next to it, so it doesn't really matter. But if you can do most of them, what you probably should do then is do the ones that you have the room. And I have a bigger gap here, so I'm going to kind of cheat. Well, not cheat. I'm tricking the eye. I'm making those dots a little bit bigger to fill in the space. Over here, they're a little smaller. So if you've got, like, say, 7 of the zones where it will work, I would do them. And then the one that doesn't work, you could leave it out. Because I think this step kind of fills in that space. But you can make that choice on your own, however, whatever you think is going to work for your piece. So this is the last step on this layer. And then what we're going to do is get out my handy dandy hair dryer and very quickly dry this layer. You must dry layers before you put more dots on. All right. And I see people are giving me some messages. I love the messages. The messages are awesome. Thank you for the messages. Okay, so got my dryer. Maybe I'll switch back cameras just because I can. That would be cool. Yeah, there I am. Okay, so I'm going to dry this, and you can watch me dry it. Here we go. That was it. And now I'm going to switch my camera back. I'm loving that I switched the camera back. Look at that. Now that camera is really sharp too. I have a light nearby because I thought, you know, I might want to shine a light, but I'm finding that works okay. So if you are finding for you though that it needs more light, let me know. But I see every once in a while my hand's making a shadow, but that's about it. So now we're going to put on the second layer. So with the second layer, it's the same kind of thing. This is dry enough. And I'm just going to be very gentle. If yours is sort of just dry enough, be really careful and don't push too hard when you put your dots on. And then you'll get a better effect. So we want tool 4. We're going to start in the middle, and we need our lightest ocean breeze. And we're going to put it in the middle. Now, that comes with practice. That's hard to see because the light's not allowing you to see that the dot because it's so close to the white in color. But I did a pretty good job of getting it dead center. That's tricky to do. So if it's not exactly right, balance your need for it to be dead center with making a bigger mess. And that really is a balance, let me tell you, because you can play around with it, play around with it, play around with it, and you will probably just end up with a bigger mess. Just trust me that will come with time, and you could even take and do a little practice. It's like doing my scales when I was learning piano. You could, you know, get a bunch of big dots, dry them, and then practice going dead center in them. It comes with time. Okay, so now we need tool 7, and we're going to use our dark orange, or the orange color. Out of our 3, it's the darkest. And I'm going to go on top of my first round of 8 dots. Just like this. Redipping every time because you get the same size dot. There we go. Now we need the same tool, and we're going to use our white, and we're going to be working. Now I could do that pretty fast because that was tool 6 underneath. I can still see a little bit of that first layer of dots, and that was pretty easy to put on. Now we're going to put a tool 7 dot right in the middle with white, or our off-white, of our light ocean breeze. So with this, and I apologize, I can tell on the camera it's harder to see with these lighter colors the difference. Let me see if I hold that up if you can see it. No. No, you can't. Just be careful, so I'll describe it. Just be careful that as you put the second layer down, because it's such a precise small dot, you want it to be in line. And you can actually kind of fool the eye a little bit. So you want it to be in line with the center. So if your bottom layer dot that you're putting these on is a little bit off kilt, you can kind of balance that with this middle dot you're putting in and fool the eye into seeing a line that's straighter. It really will. So there is my white with tool 7. Oh, I'm still blocking the camera. Thank you. I'll try my best. And my hair's really large. Maybe I'll wear it like a hair, like tie it back. Okay. where am I at now? 5 light ocean breeze. We need number 5, and we're going to put the lightest ocean breeze. So this set of dots here, that is the darker ocean breeze. We'll get a lighter ocean breeze like that. Oh, and you can see it, yay. Another thing I thought, maybe if I pull this out here, you can see it better too. There, like that. And I'm just going to keep rotating it. So these dots are barely dry. They're probably 80% dry. So I'm going very light as I put these on. There we go. Now, where are we putting that? Oh, yes. So we're going to go into our light peach. So we're going to use our orange, the darker of the 3 orangey peach colors. And we're going to take tool 7 and put dots in there. So you notice with all of these, we want to see a ring of the very bottom dot. We want to still see that. There. Now tool 4, and my orange dots are going to get the tool 4. And these are, again, they're still somewhat wet, but I'm going to be very gentle. And I'm going to use the middle peachish color. So it's out of the 3, it's right in the middle. It's not the darkest, it's not the lightest. And if your piece is only barely dry, be gentle like me, because this one here, you can see that the dot around this edge down here is a little misshapen, and that's because I'm working with it being somewhat wet for the sake of time. And I'm learning how much to dry it that I can kind of cheat and get away with. But if I was doing this all by myself, I would wait for it. When I first started making these, that was the hardest thing in the world, waiting for the layers to dry. Oh, I would want to just finish it so bad. I'd go out for a run to make myself stay away from it and not mess it up. Okay, back to tool 7. And we're going to put a dot of the turquoise just in here. So the turquoise is, well, it's not our darkest blue. We're actually saving this really dark blue for the very, very top layer, but it's almost as dark as that. So we have our two ocean breezes, a light one and a little darker. So we want this turquoise. And we're going to put a dot right in that tip. And again, we're going to try to line it up with the center. Just like that. I'm just so excited about how my work with this is evolving because it keeps it fresh and exciting for me. So as I was saying, when I first was doing this and creating them, I would just be so excited to see them and to do the second layers, and that was very exciting for me. Now the excitement is definitely coming from creating the patterns and seeing other people use them. It's such a thrill. And I'm very pleased that you would join in tonight and do this along with me. So now let's go back to, I think I've missed one. Yes, we need to go back here on this turquoise and put something on it. So you need tool 4. And we're going to use the ocean breeze. So out of my 2, it's the darker one. And I'm just taking care to be gentle because the drying issue is is the biggest issue on the largest dots. They put down the most paint, so they take the longest to dry. This particular pattern is on my website, and it's a free download, so you can take it and download it and see how it looks written out if you'd like to, and then you have the instructions and you can redo it again if you'd like. We've got one more thing on this layer to do. We're going to use our peach, the middle of those three colors, and just put a dot with tool 7 in this white dot, just a little finishing touch. Then we're going to do a dry, and we've got literally 17 more dots to go on the last layer. Oh, I love how that's looking on the camera. That's cool. Okay, dryer time. I'm not going to bother to change my camera this time, but I will dry it. There. So one thing you could give me feedback on, if you'd like to either post a message in the live chat, or if you'd like to email me at ginger@travelingkindnessrocks.ca. I'm just curious to know about the timing of like how fast and the pace is, and make sure that that's okay. Because nobody mentioned anything as we've been going along tonight, so I'm going to assume it was all right. But if you found that it was a little fast-paced, you can let me know. That's one of the balances when you're not right there and I can't see what you're doing. It's helpful to know that. So with the last layer, we only need these two colors, I believe. Yes. We need a red and we need a really vibrant dark blue. And we only need tool 7. So I'm going to put one dark blue dot, and again, good luck finding the bullseye. This is tricky. There, I did it. So that's the blue. Actually, I might as well stick with my blue. The blue as well is going to go here in my biggest dot. And if your paint's not dry, do not push down. Just let it gently transfer onto. If you push down, you're going to literally put an indent into your paint that hasn't already fully cured yet. So I was saying in the last session I did, some people might think I kind of know the entire pattern when I sit down and design something, and I don't always. With this one, when I would have designed it, I picked the colors, obviously, that I wanted to go together. So generally the turquoises and the peachy oranges. And then I would have gone from there. And as a teacher, because I'm not a trained artist, I'm a teacher, I put my teacher's lens on and I think about creating a piece, like what is the tension for this piece? So this is something that I can do with people who are just starting out, although it looks still beautiful, and people who have been doing this a little bit longer can still find enjoyment in it. So I put my lens on like that, and then I create something. So I wouldn't have known exactly what it would have come up. come out to be. Although the concept of these lines, I kind of had that in my head before I started. So now we've got one more set of dots to do, and it's the darker red, still tool 7, and it's going on top of those peachy colors. So this is our last set of dots. Boy, this went really fast. I'm looking at our time. It's been about 40 minutes. If you would like to post a picture on Traveling Kindness Rocks Facebook page or Instagram or tweet it, you're welcome to. That would be wonderful. I'd love to see what you created. And I continue to tell people I think of these as songs. So if you hear someone sing a song, it sounds different than when someone else sings it, but you still know it's the same song. And that's kind of what these are. So when I create something, it's an original composition, and then I'm letting other people learn it, and yours will look a little bit different than someone else's, and that's cool. So if you want to email me a picture, or if you want to post a picture, you are more than welcome to. And I'm going to put my camera back just so that I can say goodnight. So thank you very much for joining me. Here's the one I created this evening. And I guess you get to decide what is up and like, if you like that being the main way, or if you want it tilted that way. Here's the one I created this evening. Here's the original I did. So I guess I did a pretty good job too of replicating it. And if you want to sign your piece, a metallic Sharpie is wonderful for signing on black if you've used black as your background, or signing on a rock is really nice to use a black Sharpie as well. So these are still wet, so be careful. And thank you for joining in with me. And when I am ready to do another one, which will likely be pretty soon, like within a week or so, I'll probably do another one of these live broadcasts. I will post to Facebook the event so that you can make a plan to join in and get your paints ready and join me. Okay, good night, everybody.